A young man named Jack was relieving himself when he suddenly realized something terrifying. The world had already ended, but out of nowhere, he spotted a group of people moving toward him. The moment he sensed danger, panic took over. He didn't even have time to clean himself up before sprinting away. He rushed back to his small shelter hidden deep in the woods. Once inside, he carefully covered the entrance with branches and peered through a narrow crack to see what was happening outside. It was the 10th year after the apocalypse. The world's population had dwindled to only a few thousand survivors. In a world like this, strangers were usually either ruthless raiders or cold-blooded killers. As the group drew closer, Jack's anxiety continued to grow. Seeing his son's fear, Jack's elderly father also looked outside to assess the situation. The old man quickly realized that the strangers were only a short distance from their hideout. Years of survival experience told him exactly what was happening. Death had arrived at their doorstep. Without wasting a second, he began gathering their essential supplies. Staying in this shelter was no longer an option. Leaving immediately was their only chance to survive. But Jack was overwhelmed with worry because his girlfriend was bedridden, suffering from a severe infection that had left her extremely weak. A few moments later, Jack pulled himself together and started packing. His father then smashed open the back exit, and the three of them slipped away as quickly as possible. Their goal was to escape before the strangers noticed them. Unfortunately, Jack's girlfriend was so weak that she could barely keep moving. The three survivors supported one another as they struggled forward. During the escape, Jack even dropped his backpack along the way. His father soon realized that if they continued at this pace, none of them would survive. Then he made a difficult decision. He lifted the cover of an old outhouse nearby and told Jack and his girlfriend to hide inside. It was an unpleasant place to hide, but they had no choice. After that, the old man went out alone to face the enemy. At first, the brave father managed to take down several attackers, but no matter how skilled someone is, one man can only fight against an entire group for so long. Within minutes, the raiders surrounded him and brutally slit his throat. Watching this unfold shattered Jack and his girlfriend. Tears filled their eyes, but there was nothing they could do. The slightest sound would have revealed their location and guaranteed their deaths as well. So they swallowed their grief, their anger, and their heartbreak, forcing themselves to remain completely silent. Fortunately, the attackers never discovered their hiding place. For now, Jack and his girlfriend had escaped their notice and lived to see another day. Just when Jack and his girlfriend thought they had escaped danger, the gang leader noticed Jack's backpack lying on the ground. Without hesitation, he picked it up and added it to the loot. Jack's heart sank. Inside that backpack were the medications keeping his girlfriend alive. A short time later, the raiders picked up his father's body and prepared to leave. But before departing, the leader's eyes landed on the old outhouse pit. Something about it seemed suspicious. So he decided to investigate. Hidden below, Jack gripped the lid with all his strength. When the lid refused to budge, the leader became even more suspicious. He figured there might be food or supplies hidden inside, but as he leaned closer and took a sniff, a wave of foul stench slammed into his nose. The horrible smell instantly killed his curiosity. He dropped the lid, cursed under his breath, and walked away with the rest of his men. Huddled in the corner below, Jack and his girlfriend trembled with fear. Only after a long time, when they were certain the raiders were gone, did they finally climb out of their hiding place. What they found outside was heartbreaking. The peaceful woodland home they had built over the years had been completely destroyed. Their belongings were scattered everywhere, and nearly everything valuable had been stolen. The exhausting escape had taken the greatest toll on Jack's girlfriend. The infection spreading through her body had grown far worse than before. There was only one thing that could save her now, the medicine that had been stolen by the raiders. Watching her writhe in pain broke Jack inside. For a brief moment, he picked up a pillow and considered ending her suffering forever. But when the moment came, he couldn't do it. He simply couldn't kill the woman he loved. He had already lost his father, and he wasn't ready to lose the last person who still gave meaning to his life. His father's death had changed him. The frightened man he once was no longer existed. Jack made a decision. Like a devoted partner, he would do everything in his power to bring back the medicine. No matter the cost, he would get it back. He left all the remaining water for his girlfriend, carefully concealed the cabin again with branches and sticks, and set off alone in search of the raiders. After wandering for several hours, he spotted a tent in the distance. But in this ruined world, trusting strangers was often a death sentence. Instead of approaching directly, Jack picked up a rock and carefully tossed it toward the tent. Silence. No movement. No voices. After waiting a while, he cautiously moved closer and peeked inside. The owner of the tent had died long ago. Still, that hardly mattered anymore. In this new world, supplies were worth far more than human lives. Water, food, and survival gear were the true treasures. Jack searched every corner of the tent. All he found was a box of matches, a small knife, and a whistle. At the time, the items seemed almost useless, just a few insignificant scraps left behind by a dead survivor. What Jack didn't know was that these small items would soon become the very things that saved his life. Then he realized something terrifying. He was lost. Somewhere in the endless silence of the forest, he had completely lost his sense of direction. He no longer knew where his cabin was. He spent hours wandering through the woods, desperately trying to find his way back. But things only got worse. After all that searching, Jack eventually discovered that he had walked in a giant circle. He had ended up right back where he started. With no other option left, Jack climbed a tall tree, hoping to get a better view of the surrounding area and track down the raiders. Fortunately, the plan worked. From the top of the tree, he spotted a plume of smoke rising in the distance. It was a clear sign that people were nearby. But at that very moment, a small mistake nearly cost him his life. Distracted by what he had seen, Jack lost his footing and plunged from the tree. He crashed hard onto the ground. The sound echoed through the forest and immediately caught the attention of a pack of wild dogs nearby. Barking erupted from all directions. Panicked, Jack tried to get back on his feet, but the fall had badly injured his leg. Death was closing in. Thinking quickly, he gathered dry branches and managed to start a fire. Within minutes, the wild dogs had surrounded him. Gripping a burning stick, Jack stood his ground against the vicious animals. The dogs snarled and circled him, but they were too afraid of the flames to attack. All night long, Jack sat beside the fire, fighting to stay alive. When morning finally arrived, luck was on his side. The dogs were gone. After traveling a short distance, he came across a river. Something immediately caught his attention. The water was stained red with blood. Suspicious, Jack followed the river upstream to find the source. Not far away, he spotted a woman sitting on the riverbank, cleaning blood from a knife. Jack instantly hid in the bushes. He didn't rush in. Instead, he quietly picked up a rock and began following her from a safe distance. After some time, she led him directly to her camp. At last, Jack had found the raiders' hideout, but when he arrived, something surprised him. The camp was almost deserted, and the woman appeared to be the only person there. Jack realized this might be his best opportunity. He carefully started sneaking closer, but then he noticed a clever security measure. Bells had been strung around the perimeter of the camp to alert the occupants of any intruders. Fortunately, Jack spotted them in time and avoided setting them off. A few moments later, he saw something that filled him with hope: his stolen backpack. He rushed over, grabbed it, and quickly searched through its contents. Then his heart sank once again. The medicine wasn't there. Now he had only one option left: search the entire camp. Jack began checking every corner, looking for anything that might lead him to the medication. Suddenly, the woman appeared right in front of him. A brutal struggle broke out. Jack had been starving for days, and his body was growing weaker by the hour, but he refused to give up. He fought with everything he had left. The two battled fiercely, trading blows as they wrestled for control. Then, at the perfect moment, Jack grabbed the rock he had picked up earlier and smashed it into the woman's head. One powerful strike changed everything. Within moments, Jack finished off his enemy. As soon as the immediate danger was gone, he resumed searching the camp for the medicine, but then the rest of the raiders returned. Realizing the situation, Jack quickly wiped away the bloodstains, erased as much evidence of the fight as possible, and frantically dragged the woman's body toward a large tree. He hoped to hide her well enough that the others would assume she simply hadn't returned yet. While dragging the body, however, the axe slipped from his hands and fell onto the ground. At that exact moment, the raiders were arriving back at camp. There was no time to think. Jack shoved the body behind the tree, hid there himself, and watched their movements from cover. Then he saw something that sent a chill through him. The raiders had brought back a young boy. From the way they treated him, it looked as though he was about to become their next victim. Jack didn't know what to do. At the same time, one of the raiders started walking in his direction. Holding his breath, Jack pressed himself against the tree. One small sound would mean the end. Fortunately, the man had only come to relieve himself. Jack felt a brief wave of relief, but as the raider turned to leave, his eyes landed on the axe lying on the ground. Instantly, he realized that an intruder had been in the camp. The man ran back to his companions and raised the alarm. Within minutes, the entire gang grabbed their weapons and spread out through the forest, searching for whoever had infiltrated their camp. Taking advantage of the distraction, Jack quickly concealed the woman's body beneath a pile of leaves and quietly made his way back toward the trailer. His first priority was saving the young boy, but as soon as Jack approached approached him, the frightened child panicked. The boy thought another attacker had come to hurt him. Terrified, he began screaming at the top of his lungs. Things became even worse when a wounded raider inside the trailer heard the noise. He was about to come outside and investigate. Acting fast, Jack freed the boy and urged him to run. The child sprinted away into the forest while Jack turned his attention back to the medicine. As he searched the trailer, something caught his eye: a locked metal box. For some reason, he was convinced that what he needed might be inside. He kicked the box repeatedly, trying to break it open, but the lock refused to give way. Then he heard voices outside. The raiders were returning. With no other choice, Jack slid underneath the trailer and hid in the shadows, hoping they wouldn't find him. Outside, the gang's leader, a tall man with a long beard, was furiously yelling at his followers. He was enraged by their carelessness and demanded to know how an intruder had managed to slip into their camp. A short while later, however, his attention was drawn to fresh dirt marks on the locked box. That was all the proof he needed. Now he was certain that the intruder was still somewhere nearby. Gathering his men, he headed back into the forest to continue the search. This time, they didn't find Jack, but they did discover the woman's body hidden beneath a pile of leaves. The sight hit the bearded leader hard. It was obvious that she had meant a great deal to him. The pain and rage in his eyes were impossible to miss. Sometime later, the group held a funeral for her and set her funeral pyre ablaze. Meanwhile, Jack remained hidden beneath the trailer throughout the entire night. Lying on the cold ground, exhausted and terrified, he never allowed himself a moment of comfort. Finally, the next morning, during the quiet hours between night and day, Jack decided to make his move. He had noticed a key hanging around the bearded leader's neck. There was a good chance it belonged to the locked box. Slowly and carefully, Jack crawled out from beneath the trailer. He struck a match for a little light and crept toward the sleeping leader. Then he pulled out his small knife and cautiously reached for the key dangling from the man's neck. One tiny mistake could have cost him his life, but fortune was finally on his side. After several nerve-wracking moments, Jack successfully removed the key without making a sound. The instant he had it, he hurried to the locked box. With trembling hands, he inserted the key and unlocked it. As the lid creaked open, hope returned to his eyes. Inside were the very medications his girlfriend desperately needed. At last, all his efforts had paid off. Before leaving, Jack decided to play one final trick. He secured the trailer door from the outside, hoping to trap the raiders inside and buy himself some time. Then, clutching the medicine, he ran into the forest as fast as he could. But fate wasn't finished with him yet. While fleeing through the camp, his foot struck one of the warning bells. The sharp ringing echoed across the entire area. The sound instantly woke the bearded leader. He immediately realized what had happened. The intruder had escaped. Within moments, the raiders smashed their way out and launched a full-scale pursuit. Now Jack was running for his life, with the entire gang close behind him. Knowing the forest trails far better than his pursuers, Jack sprinted through the wilderness at full speed while the raiders spread out in different directions, trying to surround him. For a long time, he managed to stay ahead, but eventually, the hunters closed in. They caught him. When Jack opened his eyes again, he found himself tied up with ropes. He was lying on the ground. Around him, some of the raiders were tending a fire while others sharpened their knives and weapons. One look was enough for Jack to understand exactly what was about to happen. He was going to be their next victim, but Jack wasn't the kind of man who gave up. At that moment, he noticed something lying nearby. It was the whistle he had found earlier in the abandoned tent. Suddenly, a dangerous idea flashed through his mind. Slowly, he dragged himself across the ground toward it. Before the raiders could figure out what he was doing, Jack grabbed the whistle with his mouth and blew into it with all his strength. A sharp, piercing sound echoed throughout the forest. The raiders immediately realized what he had done. They rushed to stop him, but it was already too late. From deep within the woods came a chorus of chilling howls. The whistle had attracted a pack of wild dogs, and they were racing toward the camp. Only moments earlier, the bearded leader had carried himself like the king of the forest. Now even his face had gone pale. The very next second, he ordered his men to run, but Jack's plan was a double-edged sword. He had driven away his enemies, yet now he would have to face the savage dogs as well. Surprisingly, Jack remained calm, because he still had the old rusty knife he had found earlier. It was his last hope. Meanwhile, the pack of wild dogs was closing in rapidly. In this ruined world, they had become some of the deadliest predators alive. At the last possible moment, Jack pulled out the knife and sawed through the ropes binding his wrists. The instant he was free, he sprang to his feet and hid behind the stump of a dead tree. From there, he managed to avoid drawing the dogs' attention. The cannibalistic raiders weren't so lucky. There were many of them, making them much easier targets. minutes. The entire pack focused on the fleeing gang. Desperate to survive, the raiders scattered in every direction, but the bearded leader fell behind. His leg had already been injured, and he couldn't run fast enough. When he realized the dogs were about to catch him, his true nature emerged. Without hesitation, he stabbed one of his own men in the leg and left him behind. The wounded raider barely had time to scream before the pack descended upon him. Within seconds, he became their prey. Watching his followers die one by one filled the leader with rage and hatred. Meanwhile, Jack believed the danger had finally passed. Exhausted, he sat beneath a large tree to rest. But he had no idea that death was still stalking him. One of the bearded leader's surviving men had quietly tracked him down. Holding a knife in his hand, the raider slowly crept closer and closer to Jack, preparing to strike. The raider intended to end everything with a single strike, but Jack was no longer the frightened man he once had been. The hardships of the past few days had transformed him into a tougher, more dangerous survivor. The moment the attacker made his move, Jack reacted instantly. Caught completely off guard, the raider never had a chance to recover. Within seconds, Jack overpowered him and took him down. Even then, Jack knew the fight wasn't truly over. As long as the gang still existed, he would never be able to live in peace. So he came up with a new plan. He stripped the dead raider of his clothes and disguised himself as one of the gang members. A short time later, another raider spotted him and approached, believing Jack was an ally. That was exactly the opportunity he had been waiting for. Moving with lightning speed, Jack attacked and drove a knife straight into the man's stomach. Another enemy was gone, but the real threat still remained. The gang leader was alive. Jack picked up a bow and arrow lying nearby. By now, he understood that the battle had reached its final stage. Either he would survive, or his enemy would. Not long afterward, the two men found themselves facing each other in an open clearing. This time, Jack had the advantage. He possessed a weapon that could strike from a distance. From roughly 15 yards away, he carefully took aim and released an arrow. The shot flew true. The arrow buried itself deep in the leader's leg. A scream of agony echoed throughout the forest, but Jack didn't stay to finish the job. Instead, he immediately turned and ran. He knew exactly what would happen next. Before long, the leader's desperate cries attracted the wild dogs once again. In his injured condition, there was nowhere to run. The pack caught up to him. Within moments, the dogs descended upon their prey. At last, the greatest threat hanging over Jack's life was gone forever. With the medicine safely in hand, he began the journey back to his woodland home. For the first time in days, hope filled his heart. Soon, he would save the woman he loved. But the moment he arrived, that hope shattered. The cabin door stood open. Silence filled the air, and his girlfriend was nowhere to be seen. Panic rushed through him. He searched the area frantically. Then he noticed something horrifying. Wild dog tracks covered the ground around the cabin. The sight made his stomach drop. He had already lost his father. Now it seemed that he had lost his girlfriend as well. The man who had endured unimaginable suffering to protect the people he loved was finally broken. Jack sank to his knees and stared blankly at the ground. It felt as though every struggle, every sacrifice, and every ounce of hope had been for nothing. Then, a gentle hand touched Jack's shoulder. He turned around and saw his girlfriend standing behind him, alive. Tears filled his eyes as he pulled her into a tight embrace. After all the pain, loss, and struggle they had endured, they had finally found each other again. The nightmare was over, and from that day forward, they would face whatever came next, together. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Thanks for watching.